3 years ago, I had the privilege of meeting a lovely woman named Melba Salmon. She found our clinic through the internet when she was searching for clinics for uninsured women. She came in just for her breast exam and pelvic exam. She ended up doing genetic testing because she has a strong family history of breast cancer. She was my first patient to come back with a BRCA mutation. And from there, things have just progressed. Melba has been through every aspect of our program, from having prophylactic surgeries, diagnostic tests, and I would like to introduce her. She is going to tell her story.
So my name is Melba Salmon, and I am one of 9 children from the Indianapolis area. My work is involved in education, and part of being from a big family is that recently our family had a really concerning scare. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer 6 years ago. We're a very close-knit family, so it was pretty important to us to figure out what was going on, how we could best care for her, and to get as much information about her medical care as possible. We had to learn a lot fast. And part of my role in our family was to serve as her care coordinator. And I say care coordinator and not caregiver because I am not a medical expert. And I trust the experts to provide care. And I just coordinated services between my mom and her medical providers. And in that process, one of her doctors recommended that we have a genetic test to see if our family was at an increased risk for cancer, because we'd had several family members experience medical challenges because of different types of cancer. And during the time that my mom was receiving care, I couldn't focus on, getting the test done for myself. But when her surgeries were complete and she was able to go home, and we were very pleased that she was doing well, I could turn the focus now to my own care. I reached out to a couple of programs to ask about resources and places to go to get care, and I am incredibly thankful that I was led to the Andis Women's Clinic, because there I met 2 phenomenal women. I call them my family now, because we've been on this journey together since 2017, and they really care for me like I'm family. And they look after me, they make calls just to see how I'm doing, but I digress. When I was referred to the women's clinic, Beth recommended that I get the genetic test done, and that's kind of where the Women Helping Women's program entered into my journey. As an entrepreneur, I'm self-employed, and there are times when my business is going really well financially, and there are times when I don't have business and I struggle financially. And Women Helping Women made it possible for me to receive really critical tests that kind of laid the foundation for the next few years of my journey. I was able to get genetic testing completed, and I found out that I was positive for BRCA1, and that began this journey of preventative measures, really just checking to see if doing mammograms every 6 months, and then an MRI every 6 months, and receiving a lot of medical attention that I wouldn't have been able to receive because of a financial burden. And our society really should be concerned when people can't receive medical care because of financial need. So when you're giving to programs like this, you're not just giving to a program, you truly are lending to people's lives. It makes a difference whether or not you can get really critical information about what your needs are, and then actually having the need met. It's one thing to receive information, Melba, you're BRCA positive and you have to be aware and you have to have screenings every 6 months. It's a whole nother discussion when we have to find the resources to receive those screenings. And I guess one great part of this is that I looked forward to coming back for the screenings because I get to see Beth and I get to see Becky, and we could talk about how I was doing and how my family was doing, and really walk this journey together. It makes all the difference in the world. And I have to share that I don't live close to Hancock Regional Hospital. I drive an hour to receive care. And I say to receive care because it's not just medical attention. The people I've encountered here absolutely care about me. They care about my journey. It makes me tear up because there's so many things that happen in life where you just want to know somebody cares. And I didn't know about the Women Helping Women's program. Beth and Becky told me about it because they cared about whether or not I received the treatment that I did and the treatment that I needed. And that's how I found out about the program to even receive the benefit. Because my plan was to go home and try to figure it out. I don't know what I was going to figure out. And I don't know exactly how I was going to make it happen. But that piece of stress was removed because they cared enough to share that there were resources available to help me along the way. And if I had not found out about the BRCA1 gene, I wouldn't have been able to have the surgeries that I've since had. They've even helped me along the journey for having preventative care. I've since had a bilateral mastectomy. I've since had an oophorectomy. And all of that was based on the knowledge I was able to receive from that original gene test. And Women Helping Women helped me get there. And I can't thank them enough. I can't thank donors enough. To everyone who donates to the program, whether you are staff in the hospital or a donor that just appreciates the significance of what the program does for others, thank you, because you have lended to my journey. You helped me care for myself, and I promise you, I will pay it forward and do the same. So when we found out that my mom had breast cancer, and it was recommended that each of my siblings and I have the genetic testing, initially not everyone was on board. And I think I was the first to have the test done, and then I shared the results with my siblings. And a few years later, January of this year, as a matter of fact, one of my younger sisters went in for a routine mammogram. And in fact, I think she called her doctor because she found a lump. And when she went in for the mammogram, they did a biopsy and let her know that she was positive for triple negative, very aggressive breast cancer. This wasn't new to us. We were shocked because my mom was in her 60s when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my baby sister is 42. And so it made us really aware that cancer can hit us at any age. I think we were falsely believing that it was something that we'd really have to be worried about once we reached our 60s, because most of our family members had experienced cancer when they were over the age of 60. So we weren't that concerned. But when we found out that my sister had triple negative breast cancer, we realized that it's a little more serious and we should be acting much more quickly than we initially did. So my sister started her journey, and she asked me to be her care coordinator for her cancer journey. And initially, I began serving as her care coordinator until we found a couple lumps in my breast. And that put me in a different position where now my stress level just shot out the roof, and I wasn't in a position to be as calm and focused on her care because I had to switch to my care. Now, thankfully, after having one biopsy, we discovered that one of the lumps was benign, and we had to wait to do a biopsy on the second lump. And that led us to the decision that I know that I'm positive for BRCA. More than one family member has had breast cancer. In fact, 2 of my first cousins were diagnosed. One last fall 2019, and the second one was diagnosed with breast cancer in July of 2020. But before the July 2020 diagnosis, I realized that if I don't act now, my options will be based on what the cancer does, and I can't be proactive in doing what's necessary to take care of my health. So as a result of my sister's diagnoses, I decided to have a bilateral mastectomy and also to have the oophorectomy. And several of our family members now have been tested. All of my siblings have been tested. Thankfully, 2 of my siblings were negative for the BRCA mutation. And the other siblings, we all are planning our course. So I have 2 sisters that are currently going through various pre-op appointments and discussions with their medical providers, because they too will take preventative measures to have mastectomies and eventually have the ovaries removed as well. It's just, for me, it's really important to emphasize that family care and making sure you really examine how hereditary medical challenges can impact one generation after another. It's so important. It's so important to have those discussions and just to seek preventative care. You know, this does not have to be, it will always be life-changing, but it doesn't have to be life-ending. And we're learning more and more that the more proactive we are in screenings, the more proactive we are in having very transparent discussions with our medical providers, the more equipped we are to take action and even to share our stories with other people who may not be aware. I tell everyone that I know about my journey, not because I want to share my business with the whole world, but honestly, I tell them because I recognize that awareness is so critical. You know, prevention can only happen if we act early. So I appreciate the opportunity for sharing my story to anyone who will listen. All of my colleagues and clients and neighbors, of course, all my friends. I just encourage everyone to have some real honest discussions, do the monitoring and testing that's necessary. 3 children. 3. And at the time when I first found out, and actually even when my mom was diagnosed, I moved my mom in with me. And I cared for her from the beginning of her journey to the end of her journey. And I was working full-time, 3 kids, 2 still in high school, 1 in college. And by the time I began having services through the Women's Center, I still had 2 in high school and 1 in college, and working full-time, but now I'm working full-time for myself. So I'm wearing even more hats than I wore previously. And it was a very, very stressful time. You know, it's a very hard thing to decide. To have a mastectomy. The stress is real. I had anxiety attacks about how my body would look. And I don't like to be down. So just even having to take time off of work. When you're self-employed, when you don't work, you don't make money. And so having to take time for recovery, that was a hard decision in itself. And it's hard to ask for help when you're accustomed to giving help. When you're the one that provides help and support for everyone, it's very difficult to ask for help and not feel judged. and not feel like you're a burden. And I never felt that way coming here. I always felt supported. I'm a researcher by nature. And so for every procedure and every surgery, I did hours and hours of research. And one of the things I think I appreciated most about my care was that Becky and Beth would talk through every new piece of information I would find. They would help me understand what I read because I don't have a medical background, and then they would fill in the gaps of information for me. And it was the same with each doctor. Dr. Amde has been phenomenal. Dr. Lowe has been phenomenal. In fact, I think Dr. Lowe probably had 3 hours of pre-op discussion with me before I ever had surgery because I had a lot of questions. And when I went to Dr. Amde prior to the mastectomies, I had a template that I completed, a template of questions and some images that I wanted to share about what my reconstruction goals were. And she completely indulged me and answered every single question, every question. It was 4 pages long. So, but part of the reason I do that isn't just because I wanted to ask questions, but it helps me to relieve stress in this journey, for me to feel aware. And some people may not want to know as much as I wanted to know, but if I was going to have to release control of what was happening to my body, I needed to gain it in some other area. And for me, asking questions and really being informed about the process and the changes that would happen in my body, the changes that would happen after surgery, those things were so critical to me. That was a little bit of control that I still had. And I so appreciate that every single doctor, nurse practitioner indulged me and answered every question, and they congratulated me for knowing a lot about, my medical history and journey, and it really made the difference. And I know that's part of why my recovery has been so good. It's because I was able to alleviate a lot of that stress. And when I had questions after surgery, never had an issue asking a question and getting in. So it really has made a difference. When you choose where you receive medical care, you have to take those things into account. As I said before, it's like family to me here. I have an extended family that I didn't have before. And I have programs like Women Helping Women to thank for that. I'm so incredibly grateful. I call Becky and Beth my angels because no matter what time it is, no matter if I've been in here for 2 or 3 months or they hadn't seen me in 6 months, they still look out for me and ask questions for my care. And I appreciate that. If I could offer one piece of advice for people who might be afraid of taking that first step, I'd ask you to stop and think for a moment. If you knew that you could make a difference in your life or the lives of those that you love, would you do it? I know without doubt everyone would say yes. Well, taking that first step is you acting on your yes. If we had not taken the first step of getting the genetic test done, we wouldn't have been equipped with the information necessary to know what to do next. And oftentimes we're afraid of taking that first step because we're not sure what to do. There are so many kind, caring, well-informed, skilled medical professionals that can help see you through the journey. Just trust them. Trust them and take that first step to get tested. It might come back that you're negative, but you're better informed. I'm not happy that my mother had cancer. I am happy that through her journey, I was informed in how to take care of myself so my kids don't have to have the same experience with me. Because I love them, that's the reason why I had a preventative surgery. Because I love them. I don't want them to endure the stress or the heartache of fearing not having their mom around because cancer takes me away. I don't ever want to have to do that. And that's why my mother's 9 children have all gone through the process for getting tested for this genetic mutation. We can't control what's going on in our bodies. We can control what we do about it. So I'm very grateful that I was able to get the test, and I would encourage anyone who has any medical concerns, the longer you wait, the harder it is for you to take action and to regain control.